Epictetus once said something most people misunderstand, yet it contains the cure to almost every anxiety we carry. We suffer not from the world itself, but from the belief that we can control it. If you look closely, most of your worry doesn't come from what is happening. It comes from the silent question in your mind. What if this gets worse? What if I fail? What if I can't control what comes next? But the truth is simple and uncomfortable. You are never in control. Not of the weather, not of other people, not of outcomes, not of the future. All of it has always lived outside your reach. And here lies the most liberating paradox in Stoic philosophy. The moment you accept that everything is out of your control, anxiety loses its power over you. Today, we'll explore 7 Stoic principles that help you find peace in a chaotic world, not by gripping harder, but by releasing what was never yours to hold. 1. Let go of the illusion of control. We often believe anxiety comes from uncertainty, but the deeper truth is that it comes from our refusal to accept uncertainty. The mind clings to the idea that if we think hard enough, plan far enough, or worry long enough, life will bend to our will. But it never does. It never has. Stoics called this the illusion of control, a mental trap that convinces you the world should respond to your desires. And when it doesn't, fear appears. Not because life is painful, but because your expectations were unrealistic. Think of how often you try to control life without even noticing. You rehearse conversations in your head, hoping the other person will say exactly what you wish. You worry about outcomes you cannot predict. You rewrite the past in your mind, as if regret could alter it. You carry responsibility for things that were never yours to carry. Epictetus taught that human freedom begins the moment you can separate what belongs to you from what does not. Your thoughts, choices, and character belong to you. Everything else, the weather, the economy, other people's opinions, timing, outcomes, do not. Yet we invert this truth daily. We obsess over what isn't ours and neglect what is. We try to control other people while ignoring our own reactions. We try to control the future while abandoning the present. We try to control outcomes while resisting the work that actually shapes them. This inversion is the birthplace of anxiety. When you demand control over what cannot be controlled, life feels hostile. But when you release that demand, life becomes navigable. Not easier, but clearer. Letting go is not passive. It's not a resignation. It's choosing to invest your energy where it actually matters. It's saying, I cannot control how this unfolds, but I can control how I show up. I cannot control their behavior, but I can control my boundaries. I cannot control the outcome, but I can control my effort. I cannot control tomorrow, but I can fully live today. The mind becomes peaceful not when life stops being chaotic, but when you stop insisting it must obey your will. The world will keep changing, plans will still shift, people will still disappoint or surprise you. But your inner stability no longer depends on any of it. Here is the Stoic question that dissolves worry. Is this mine to control? If the answer is no, release it. If the answer is yes, act on it. If you're unsure, step back until clarity returns. Letting go is not losing power, it's reclaiming it. Because anxiety thrives on attachment, but peace thrives on surrender. And when you loosen your grip on the world, you finally gain a firm grip on yourself. 2. Return to the present. Moment worry is a time traveler. It pulls your mind into the future and convinces you that safety lives somewhere ahead. In a moment that still hasn't arrived, in a scenario that may never happen. And the more your attention drifts forward, the more powerless you feel right now. But the present moment has a truth that anxiety doesn't want you to notice. Nothing unbearable is happening here. What hurts is the story you're projecting, not the reality you're standing in. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning that the present is the only place where life can touch you, and the only place where you can touch life back. The future is pure imagination. The past is sealed. Only this moment is alive, unfolding, asking for your response. Yet the mind, untrained, tries to live everywhere except here. It replays regrets, rehearses disasters, and builds entire worlds out of what-ifs. And the more it wanders, the heavier the world becomes. Returning to the present moment is not a spiritual cliché. It is a survival skill. When you come back to what is real, the fog of anxiety begins to dissolve. Clarity comes back. Breath comes back. Strength comes back. The Stoics understood this long before modern psychology confirmed it. Attention determines suffering. Wherever the mind rests, the heart follows. If your attention sits in a hypothetical catastrophe, your body will feel as if it's already happening. But if your attention returns to what your hands can do right now, fear loses its grip. This is why grounding yourself is a discipline, not a comfort technique. It is the act of reclaiming your mind from the future's illusions. Begin with something simple. Feel your breath without trying to change it. Notice the weight of your body on the chair. Sense the texture of your surroundings. Let your attention land on something that exists, not something imagined. Even this small redirection loosens the emotional storm. Then bring your focus to the task in front of you, the one real thing within arm's reach. Not 10 steps ahead, not a lifetime away. Just this one action, just this moment. Life becomes manageable when it's experienced one breath at a time. Returning to the present moment doesn't magically fix your problems, but it gives you access to the part of yourself that can. Anxiety lives in predictions, but power lives in presence. The more often you return here, the more you discover that clarity isn't something you search for. It's something you uncover the moment you stop running toward the next fear. Nothing grows in the past. Nothing is solved in the future. Everything you have, your courage, your choices, your strength, awakens only in this moment. And each time you return to it, you return to yourself. 3. Expect chaos. Prepare your mind. Chaos is not a flaw in the system, it is the system. Life was never designed to unfold according to your plans, your timing, or your expectations. And yet, much of human suffering comes from believing it should. We think of disruption as something gone wrong, when in truth, disruption is the natural rhythm of existence. The Stoics understood this intimately. They didn't wake up expecting life to cooperate. They woke up expecting life to challenge them. And because they prepared their minds for difficulty, difficulty never felt like betrayal. Only confirmation of what they already knew. This mindset is captured in a single Stoic practice, premeditatio malorum, the deliberate consideration of what could go wrong, not to frighten yourself, but to free yourself. When you mentally rehearse adversity, anxiety loses the element of surprise. You stop asking, "Why is this happening?" and start saying, "Of course it's happening, and I'm ready." Think about how differently you experience stress when you anticipate it versus when it blindsides you. A delayed project, a harsh message, a sudden setback. These moments feel unbearable only when you believe they weren't supposed to happen. But life never made that promise. The universe doesn't operate by your emotional preferences. Preparation is not pessimism. It is clarity. It is choosing to see reality as it is, not as your comfort zone would prefer it to be. When you expect that people will sometimes disappoint you, you stop taking their actions personally. When you expect that plans will shift, you stop clinging to rigid timelines. When you expect that obstacles will appear, you start developing strength instead of seeking escape. Chaos becomes less threatening the moment you stop demanding certainty. Modern life encourages the opposite approach, to expect ease, predictability, and fairness. And when the world doesn't comply, we feel wronged, as if difficulty is an error that needs immediate fixing. But the Stoic approach removes the shock, and with it, the suffering. Preparation expands your capacity. Preparation steadies your breath. Preparation removes the feeling that you're being thrown into the fire. It gives you the sense that you walked into the fire on your own terms. There is a special kind of confidence that comes from expecting challenges. Not arrogance, not apathy, but grounded readiness. You stop fearing the unexpected because it is no longer unexpected. You stop feeling attacked by life because you no longer assume life owes you comfort. And this is where freedom begins. Not in controlling what happens, but in preparing your mind for whatever happens. When the mind is trained, chaos cannot overwhelm you. It becomes noise instead of threat, weather instead of warning, a test instead of a tragedy. Life will always shift without your permission. But when you prepare your mind, those shifts stop shaking you. Chaos remains chaos, but you remain unshaken. 4. Radically accept what you cannot change. There is a quiet exhaustion that comes from fighting reality, a tension that lives in the chest, a heaviness that follows you throughout the day. It appears every time you insist that life should have unfolded differently, that someone should have acted better, that circumstances should have been kinder. This inner struggle drains more energy than the event itself. Stoics understood a truth that modern minds resist. Suffering grows not from what happens, but from the refusal to accept what has already happened. Reality is undefeated. It cannot be negotiated with. It will not bend to your preferences, no matter how justified your emotions feel. Radical acceptance is not apathy. It is not surrendering your agency. It is the opposite. It is reclaiming your power by refusing to fight battles that cannot be won. When you accept what cannot be changed, you stop pouring your strength into resistance and begin directing it toward transformation. Acceptance begins with naming the truth without distortion. Not the story you wish were true, not the version softened by hope or hardened by fear, just the plain, unembellished reality. Naming truth lifts the fog of denial and reveals where your real influence begins. Then comes the harder part, allowing yourself to feel the disappointment without letting it spiral into despair. Acceptance doesn't erase emotion, it simply prevents emotion from becoming a weapon turned inward. You can grieve something without clinging to it. You can be hurt without believing the universe is against you. Once the truth is named and felt, you can redirect your energy. This is where freedom lives. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening?" you begin asking, "Given that this has happened, what can I choose now?" That shift moves you from victimhood to authorship. Life becomes lighter when you stop arguing with it. People will behave as they choose, not as you prefer. Outcomes will unfold according to forces larger than your plans. Timing will rarely align perfectly with your expectations. None of these things improve through resistance, but all of them become manageable through acceptance. There is a quiet courage in saying, "This is how things are, and I will meet them as they are." It is the courage to stand on solid ground rather than on the shaky foundation of wishful thinking. It is the courage to face life without demanding comfort as a condition for peace. Acceptance does not mean you stop striving. It means you strive intelligently. You stop trying to fix the unfixable and start focusing on what is still within your reach, your response, your conduct, your next step. When you radically accept what you cannot change, life doesn't suddenly become perfect, but it becomes navigable. The storm may continue, but you stop trying to control the storm. You learn instead to control your stance within it. And when your stance is steady, nothing outside you can pull you under. 5. Focus on your internal authority. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize how unreliable the outside world truly is. One day, people praise you. The next, they forget you. One plan unfolds smoothly, another collapses without warning. You win something you never expected, then lose something you thought was secure. The external world is a shifting landscape, never still, never predictable. Which is why the Stoics urged a different approach. Stop building your peace on things that can be taken from you. You cannot control reputation. You cannot control timing. You cannot control how others interpret your actions. You cannot even control how tomorrow will look. But you can control your character. You can control your intentions. You can control the discipline you bring to every moment. You can control how you respond to what arrives. This is your internal authority, the only stable source of strength you will ever have. Marcus Aurelius described it as a citadel within yourself, a place untouched by chaos, where no insult, no setback, no misfortune can break you unless you permit it. The world may shake, but your inner structure doesn't have to collapse with it. Yet most people abandon this inner authority and instead hand their emotional state to the world outside. They wait for approval to feel confident. They wait for perfect conditions to feel capable. They wait for outcomes to validate their worth. And with every moment of waiting, they surrender more control over their lives. But when you return to your inner authority, something shifts. Confidence no longer depends on applause. Peace no longer depends on circumstances. Purpose no longer depends on external reward. You stand firmly on ground that belongs entirely to you. There will always be noise around you, opinions, expectations, judgments, misunderstandings. But noise only becomes influential when you let it enter your mind. The Stoic path isn't about blocking the world out. It's about filtering what deserves access to your inner space. Every day gives you a choice to anchor yourself internally or to drift externally. When you anchor inside, setbacks become feedback instead of failure. Criticism becomes information instead of injury. Delay becomes preparation instead of punishment. You stop reacting to the world and start responding from a place of stability. To live from internal authority means daring to trust your own clarity more than the crowd's confusion. It means choosing your values over convenience, your standards over approval, your truth over popularity. It means treating your mind like a kingdom, not a public square. And here is the paradox. The more you withdraw your dependence on the external world, the more powerfully you move through it. People sense the steadiness. Decisions become cleaner. Life feels less like a storm striking you and more like a sea you know how to navigate. When the world is unstable, and it always is, your inner authority becomes the only source of peace that cannot be taken from you. 6. Act without attachment to outcomes. There is a subtle kind of suffering that appears whenever you try to control what your actions must lead to. You work hard, hoping for a specific reward. You show kindness, hoping for appreciation. You take a risk, hoping for success. And when reality chooses a different path, it feels like betrayal, as if your effort somehow deserved a guaranteed return. This is the root of emotional exhaustion, demanding certainty in a world that only offers possibility. The Stoics understood that outcomes don't belong to you. Effort belongs to you. Intention belongs to you. Integrity belongs to you. But results are shaped by 1,000 forces you'll never touch. Timing, nature, other people's choices, circumstances you didn't create and cannot command. The moment you tie your peace to a specific result, you hand your well-being over to forces outside your authority. And every time reality shifts, which it will, your emotions swing with it. Joy becomes fragile, motivation becomes unstable, identity becomes conditional. Acting without attachment is not apathy, it is freedom. It is showing up fully, but without the desperation that demands, "This must go my way." When you release that demand, You reclaim a calm that cannot be shaken by outcomes. Picture a skilled archer. The moment the arrow leaves the bow, the result no longer belongs to her. Wind, distance, movement, all of these fall outside her reach. What she owns is her stance, her strength, her focus, her discipline. And that is enough. Her peace comes from mastery of the shot, not control of the target. Your life works the same way. Do the work that is yours. Let go of the result that is not. Return to your task, not your expectations. When you detach, action becomes cleaner. You stop hesitating because you stop fearing what might happen. You stop procrastinating because you stop obsessing over perfection. You stop doubting yourself because self-trust is no longer tied to external validation. And ironically, this detachment often leads to better outcomes. Not because the universe suddenly aligns, but because you are no longer acting from fear. You become steady. You become sharp. You become someone who moves with clarity instead of tension. But the deeper gift of detachment is this. Your effort becomes meaningful on its own. You learn to value who you become through the process, not just what you gain from it. You discover peace in the doing, not the having. Results will always fluctuate. Markets rise and fall. People change their minds. Opportunities open and close. Life rewards you at times and withholds at others. But your discipline, your choices, your devotion to the present moment, these remain yours forever. Act fully, release completely. Let the world do what it will, while you remain anchored in what is yours, the purity of your effort and the strength of your character. When you stop attaching your worth to outcomes, you stop living in fear, and you begin living in freedom. 7. Trust yourself enough to surrender. There is a quiet strength in letting go that most people never discover. They cling, they force, they overthink, believing that tension is the same as control. But real control, the kind that Stoics respected, comes from trust, not gripping, from surrender, not struggle. To surrender is not to give up. It is to release the illusion that you must direct every twist of your life. It is choosing to believe that you have enough courage, enough resilience, enough clarity to face whatever comes without needing to manipulate the path ahead. Most people don't struggle because life is harsh. They struggle because they lack confidence in their ability to handle life without constant micromanaging. They fear what might happen if they loosen their grip. They fear what might happen if they stop trying to predict every outcome. They fear their own strength might not be enough. But confidence isn't built through control. It's built through self-trust. Self-trust says, I can meet what comes. I don't need perfect conditions to stay steady. I don't need guarantees to take the next step. When this inner trust grows, surrender becomes possible, almost natural. You stop forcing conversations that aren't meant to happen. You stop chasing opportunities that drain your spirit. You stop controlling people who were never yours to manage. You stop trying to prevent every disappointment and instead learn to move through disappointment with dignity. Surrender creates space. Space for clarity to return. Space for opportunities you couldn't have planned. Space for you to breathe again. There is a flow in life that becomes visible only when you stop trying to dominate it. Plans shift and reveal something better. Delays guide you toward timing you didn't know you needed. Endings make room for beginnings that were waiting outside your field of vision. You start to see that not everything slipping from your hands is a loss. Sometimes it is protection. The Stoics didn't fear uncertainty because they trusted their ability to respond to it. They cultivated an inner readiness so strong that flexibility became a form of power, not weakness. They didn't cling to how life should be. They adapted to how life was and moved forward with calm precision. Surrender asks one simple question. Do you trust yourself enough to release what isn't yours to control? If the answer is no, anxiety rules you. If the answer is yes, peace begins to rise. This kind of surrender is an act of bravery. It is the courage to believe that you are capable of walking into the unknown without collapsing. The courage to accept that you don't need certainty to be strong. The courage to let life unfold without demanding a script. And once you trust yourself enough to surrender, the world loses its power to intimidate you. You become someone who moves with grace through unpredictability. Someone who doesn't panic when life changes direction. Someone who knows that peace is not found in controlling the world, but in not needing to. When you step back and look at everything we've explored, a single truth emerges. The world has always been out of control. And it was never your job to fix that. Your only task, your only responsibility, your only source of power has always been your response to the world, not the world itself. You learned that letting go of the illusion of control frees the mind from impossible expectations. You learned that returning to the present moment silences the stories that anxiety tries to build. You learned that chaos is not a threat but a constant, and preparing for it brings strength rather than fear. You learned that acceptance is not defeat, but the doorway to clarity. You learned that your internal authority is a fortress that cannot be shaken by external noise. You learned that detaching from outcomes gives you freedom to act without the weight of fear. And finally, you learned that surrender is an act of trust. A trust in yourself, in your resilience, in your ability to meet life as it comes. All of these principles point to one conclusion. Peace is not found in controlling life, but in no longer needing to. Life will continue to shift. People will continue to surprise you. Circumstances will rise and fall, often without warning. But you are not meant to chase stability in the world. You are meant to create stability within yourself through discipline, presence, acceptance, and trust. If you can carry even one of these principles into your day, you will feel the weight of worry begin to loosen. Choose one thing to release, one thing to stop controlling, one thing to surrender. Notice how the world softens when you stop fighting it. And if this message stayed with you, let it be a reminder you return to whenever life feels overwhelming. You are never meant to control everything, only yourself. Thank you for taking the time to speak with me. If this video helped calm your mind or reshape your perspective, share it with someone who may need the same reminder. And leave a comment below on which principle resonated most deeply with you. Your peace begins the moment you decide to reclaim your mind. The rest will follow.